SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.
You can wrap this one, my friend, in maroon and white. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bingo!
You're listening to Thunder and Lightning on SuperTalk Mississippi, covering Mississippi State sports like nobody else.
It's Wednesday night. You know what that means. This is Thunder and Lightning live here on SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm Brian Hadad. Thanks for joining me. Rhino down there in Studio X. He'll make sure everything, works as to the best of his abilities, which are better than my abilities. I will admit to that. We are brought to you by the good folks over at Visit Vicksburg, the Vicksburg Convention and Visitors Bureau. And of course, if you want to get in touch with the show, you do it on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Maybe not tonight so much, but, other times. Okay. All right, we're okay now. I don't want to come across as crass or uncultured, but dang, man. This is not fun. I won't lie to you and tell you that it's fun. I won't tell you that I'm having a good time watching this happen. It is what it is. Mississippi State, obviously, the season, I don't like to say the season is over, right? Because they still got games to play. Those guys are out there. They work hard. They practice hard. They want to play. They deserve those rights. So saying the season's over is kind of, I don't like to say that. It's just a personal thing, right? There's still 8 more games to play. They are what they are. But the hope for the season is kind of, there's not a lot of hope left for Mississippi State. And it's been a while since we've been here, right? I mean, you have Leach's first year, but COVID was going on, and then the schedule was so weird, and you knew that was this massive transition. I think we were all just a little more willing to accept it then. Mullen, you didn't have a year like this under him, so you got to go back to the Croom years, really. And, the Croom's last year was more about disappointment than just hopelessness, right? They had come off a bowl game. You thought they were going to be pretty good, and then they weren't. So, Croom's third year, 06, that's 18 years ago. 18 years since Mississippi State has just had a season where everything was wrong. And so, to that end, we've I don't know that we've forgotten. Because if you're a Mississippi State fan of a certain age, my age, maybe older, maybe a little younger, we've seen rough years together. Off the top of my head, I think 87, 88. I think 89 and 90 were better, but they were still losing seasons, right? 93 was a bad year. 95 was a bad year. 01, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, 5 straight seasons. 3 wins or less. 08, not great. And now this. But it's been a while. It's been a while since Mississippi State fans have been in this particular position. And then, the elephant in the room is, the other side of that is that Ole Miss is having their best season maybe ever. This is up there for them. And so there's no respite for us. So be it. We will simply put our heads down and we will get through this as best we can. But we gotta be smart about what we're doing here, right? We gotta really think this through. Do we want to, continue to put maximum emotional investment into every Saturday when, in all likelihood, a lot of them are going to look worse than we saw last weekend when State loses to Florida 45-28? This weekend is going to be one of those times, friends. You're playing the number 1 team in the nation, big crowd. You're sending a true freshman on the road into a raucous environment. All the warning signs are there for a blowout loss. Richard asked me on yesterday's show, he's like, this is hurting inside. And, here's how I try to attack my coverage. This is how I try to cover Mississippi State sports. I try to do it from the angle of I want to be fair and I want to give unbiased coverage. When I think State's doing good, I'll tell you they're doing good. When I think State's doing bad, I'm going to tell you they're doing bad. But I try to separate my emotion from the coverage, all right? And I feel like that served me well. And I feel like that's a name why I think people trust my coverage when they say, man, if Hadad says we're doing pretty good, we must be doing okay, because he doesn't just throw it around. And if I say we're doing bad, you could probably believe that we're doing bad. So I get it, that's how I try to cover things. What Richard asked me yesterday is like, does this hurt? I'm like, yeah, it hurts. And it just kind of is what it is. I've said that like 3 times now, but that is really all you can say. Nothing I can say or do is going to change the outcome of these games. Nothing I don't have that kind of power. It doesn't matter how much I wish for it or pray for it. It's going to happen the way that it's going to happen. And so for us as Mississippi State people, a proud people, like we're a race, it's a bitter pill to swallow. Nobody comes into football season thinking, gosh, 3 weeks in, it's over. And I don't know what I waited the whole offseason for. You always have that optimism that this is going to be our year. And even in a year like this, where I think I did my best to temper expectations and say, this team is really going to have to work hard. And if everything goes right, they can get to 6-6. And I think they can do that. I was just wrong, because I way underestimated how poor the defense was going to be, both from a talent perspective and a coaching perspective. But then the thing that I counted on, the offense being good from day one, has just not occurred. They were better last week. They were much better last week. And if they can stack another performance up like that, they could ever get anything out of the defense, they might have a chance to do something. It's not going to be this week. It's not going to be next week with Georgia. But maybe down the road, there's a chance somewhere. But we sit here and, if we're being honest with each other, we're looking at a season where 2-10 is not only a very real possibility, it's probably the ceiling. Any other win would be a huge, huge upset other than beating UMass. And even UMass is a team that gave Toledo a better game than did Mississippi State. These are hard things to hear. When you're a fan, you don't want to hear these things about your team. You want to believe that they're the best team out there. And I get that. But we got to be honest with ourselves here. We can't just sit here and just pump sunshine up each other's you-know-whats because it makes us feel better. All right? We got to address real problems. There are real problems that need to be addressed. And some of them can't be addressed until the end of the season. Some of them we can start addressing now. And we're going to talk about that in this show and how Mississippi State can dig out of this hole that it's in. I'll be honest with you. Some of you won't like the answer to it, but it is the only correct answer. So we'll get to that later. This Saturday, Mississippi State will go on the road to play the number 1 team in all the land, the Texas Longhorns, in the first ever game played at Darrell K. Royal Stadium as an SEC conference game. SEC conference is redundant. Yes, I know. But you know what I'm trying to say. Mississippi State will play in that game, missing its starting quarterback, a veteran who had played in that stadium before and maybe could have given State just a little bit of something, but he won't be there. He will not be available to Mississippi State. They will start a true freshman, his first ever start. All we can do, it's kind of like your kids. No matter what your kids do, you support them, right? Even when they screw up, you got to be there for your kid. Now, I'm not telling you that you got to drop $1,000 to go to a Mississippi State football game, or in the case of this game in particular, more than that to fly out to Austin or drive to Texas and get a hotel. I'm not telling you that that's not the kind of support you have to give. If you don't want to go to the games, man, I get it. It is an investment to go to Mississippi State, to anybody's college football games these days. Money is not just growing on trees out there. I get it. All you can do is just stay with these guys until the end. The end will come on November the 29th when the Egg Bowl happens. I don't think there's going to be a magical storybook ending to this game. I don't think this season's we're going to look up at some point and say, okay, they got it figured out and they pull off a big upset or anything. I just don't think that's going to happen. We'll just have to wait and see. I would be surprised if it did. So we're just going to get through these next 8 games together. I'll be here with you every week. And you got the text line. You can vent to me. I'm happy to play the role of therapist. If you need someone to talk to, Brian, your friend Brian's here for you. And hey, I'm here. I from that same angle of things. You guys are here for me this week because I got plenty weighing on me. It's not fun. It's not fun. The difference between me and you is this. Very simple. If you decide you just don't want to watch, you turn off the game. You can leave the stadium. You can turn off the TV, change the channel, do whatever you want. I'm locked in. I'm locked in for the full experience. I can't get around it. So, such as this is the life we have chosen. I don't have any regrets. Ish. Did not think 4 weeks in I'd be having this conversation with y'all, but it just is what it is. If you want to if they want to create the DVD of this season, which I wouldn't want to buy, 2024 Mississippi State football. It is what it is. We're going to talk about Michael Van Buren when we come back. What kind of player are we talking about here? What can he do in this offense? And really, what kind of expectations can we set for this kid for the season? Because it's going to be tough for him. It's going to be a tough road to hoe. We'll get to it when we come back. This is Thunder and Lightning Live here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Thunder and Lightning on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Thunder and Lightning Live here on SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm Brian Hadad. Thanks for joining me here on a Wednesday evening. As you know, we are brought to you by the good folks over at Visit Vicksburg. This Saturday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. is Vicksburg National Military Park Fee-Free Day. That's right, in honor of National Public Lands Day. Visitors can enjoy free admission to the National Military Park over there on Clay Street. For more information, you can call 601-636-0583. I'd leave the house around 3. I'd go 3 to 5, and then, from like 5 to 6, maybe go grab a meal at one of our great restaurants in the city of Vicksburg, and then get home a little bit after 6, and then, you can put some college football on after that. That's just my opinion. Something you should do maybe for just an idea. Just an idea. Just telling you. Let's talk about Michael Van Buren. He is Michael Van Buren. I don't know why Richard keeps calling him. I mean, I know why he keeps calling him Martin, but I think that joke has about a 4-week shelf life before I finally snap. Before I finally just like, hey, Cross. It's Michael. It's not Marty. It's not Marty. I'm trying to keep my calm. Let's talk about him a little bit. 4-star kid out of high school, out of Maryland. His recruitment went as such, if you don't recall, was committed to Oregon. But as soon as Jeff Lebby got the job here in Starkville, he decommitted from Oregon, visited here, committed here on his visit. And it just looks, from the outside looking in, without talking to the kid, he looked at Oklahoma's depth chart where I think he wanted to play for Lebby. He looked at Oklahoma's depth chart and said, well, they've got Jackson Arnold, 5-star kid, true freshman at the time. I could probably go to Oregon where, Bo Nix is a senior and maybe I have a chance to come in and then maybe play earlier on. Then when Lebby left Oklahoma and got the job here at Mississippi State, he's like, well, I got a much more advantageous depth chart. Let me go to Starkville. Not a big kid. Listed at 6'1" and 200 pounds. If you know anything about football measurements on these websites, chances are he's probably closer to 5'11", maybe 195 pounds. He doesn't look big on the field. Just looking at him, and I hate to make comps because I think they're unfair to the athletes. I'd rather Michael Van Buren be the first Michael Van Buren rather than try to tell him he's the next so-and-so. If you want to look at Lebby's roster of quarterbacks, he would be Mackenzie Milton. If you want to just look at a roster of quarterbacks, if you want to talk about like what's the ceiling, what could he, turn into, the guy he even kind of looks like him in the face a little bit is Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, that's a very unfair comparison. Kyler Murray was the number 1 overall player in the country his senior year of high school. He wins the Heisman Trophy. He's the number 1 pick in the draft, and now he's a good quarterback in the NFL. You can't sit there and say with any confidence that, oh, yeah, Michael Van Buren's going to follow that career path. Because if he does, it's great, but that's an unfair expectation to put on. Jeff Lebby has a big task in front of him this weekend. And, never mind the game and everything else. He's got to take this true freshman quarterback into a raucous environment to play the number one team in the nation, to get out and have an opportunity to, how do you put it even, to try to compete with this number one team. And you do it without a lot of what you would want to have. You're coming into a gunfight with a knife, basically, with this team. Defensively, you can't stay on the field with them. Offensively, you're missing a running back in Kevon Lee, who Lebby said would be out for a while. Your offensive line, it was better last week. They ran the football pretty effectively. They only gave up one sack. But that's against a Florida defense that's not very, very good. State, I believe, is I need to check the numbers. I know they're sub 100 right now in total defense. And you're thinking, well, maybe that's not that. And I know for those who are listening who are big analytics guys, total defense is not the most what's the word I'm looking for? The most modern stat, right? It's you look at a bunch of different things, and I get that. State's 111 in total defense right now. They give up 416 yards a game. The problem here is, guys, that State is 416 yards a game against Eastern Kentucky, Arizona State, Toledo, and Florida. That is, in all likelihood, 4 of the 5 easiest games they'll play this year. UMass being the other one. I think Arkansas is better than Florida. So, you're giving up that kind of yardage per game to these teams, and you haven't even played a good team yet. You haven't played a ranked team yet. Guys, Michael Van Buren has a huge, huge task in front of him. And at this point, for me, it's just about survival. Just get through the season, not only healthy, but with your confidence still intact. When you go out there and you play again in games like State's going to be playing in, where they're going to be, they're a 38-point underdog this week, and they're that for a reason. They will likely not cover. I just hope that the young man can come through this and rebound at the end of the season and be willing to go into next year and move forward, because it's going to be a really tough road to hoe. I keep having this image in my head, and I don't know. I need to find what the quarterback's name was, because I don't remember. But I remember, I think it was Will Muschamp's first year at Florida, where their starting quarterback, I think, would have been John Brantley. I'm trying to find the score as we speak here. And he gets injured in a game, and they have to go to a true freshman or maybe a redshirt freshman. Yeah, 2011, they lose to Alabama. They had to play Alabama the next week. So they're 4-0, but they lose their starting quarterback. They're going to have to play Alabama at home, who, of course, is the number one team in the nation at that point. And so they've got this true freshman quarterback who I can't remember his name. Excuse me. But Charlie Weiss, who, again, he's not a great coach by any stretch of the imagination, had to basically work with this quarterback, and every drive went and sat down with him, went and talked to him between plays, went and did everything he could. And it felt like, Weiss, who, again, I would not list as a great coach, but he had the mindset of that this kid is not ready for this moment, and I got to do everything I can as a coach to keep him in the game, to keep him confident, to tell him what's going on. And I wondered if Lebby has to do that, if Lebby kind of has to sort of pull back almost from being the head coach in some ways, which is going to be difficult. But to just work with Van Buren and keep him in the game and keep him locked in. Because he's got a massive, massive task. But I guess you could say it's a massive opportunity. Because if ever a team could play with no pressure, it's Mississippi State this weekend. So maybe Van Buren comes out a couple plays, takes some shots down the field, makes a couple of good scrambles, and gets a little juice going and gives you something to look at and say, okay, you can build around that. You can do something with that guy. Or, maybe it goes the way we all think it's going to go. It's tough to do. It's tough to think about. I'd like to believe in this kid. I think, when he signed with Mississippi State, I thought this is a guy who for the future might be a great fit in this offense. I never thought it would be week 5 of the season. I didn't think that this was going to be the case. I mean, and I say that knowing Shapen had some injury concerns, but I thought Chris Parson would just be the number 2. He's not. And give Van Buren credit for that. He's beaten Parson out. He is now the number 2 quarterback as a true freshman. That's pretty impressive. You beat out a guy who, has a couple years of experience on you. And you all sort of started at the same place. When Lebby came in, it wasn't that Parson had a lot of experience, but he was at least, physically going to be ahead of Van Buren. Van Buren this time a year ago was playing against guys who are going to be, who right now are taking, freshman chemistry and English comp and are going to go on to be accountants and lawyers. Now he's got to go out there and play the number 1 team in the nation. That is no small task for anyone, let alone for a true freshman. So Michael Van Buren, is he the future of Mississippi State? I don't know the answer to that question as we sit here right now. I don't know. But we're going to get our first real look at him this weekend, and we'll see where that takes us as far as everything else goes. So how does Mississippi State get out of this situation? I know the answer, and I think you guys know the answer too. And I think that you don't want to hear what I'm going to have to say if you don't know, but you're going to have to hear it anyway. It's just 3 little letters. I think you know what they are. And as much as some of you might not like to hear them, I'm gonna have to tell you the truth in the next when we come back. I'm gonna have to tell you some truths. They're hard truths. You may not want to hear them, but they are what they are. And it is going to be the only way Mississippi State has a chance in this new era of college football to survive and to continue to thrive and to continue to be the program that we all want to see here in Starkville. There's only one way. I guess you can guess what it is. We'll do it when we come back. This is Thunder and Lightning Live here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
For over 20, MM Digital's highly trained and trusted staff is ready to work with you to help your business capitalize on the power of digital marketing. Call 601-991-2305 or go to stmmdigital.com to get started today. Thunder and lightning on SuperTalk Mississippi.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it.
We are back here on Thunder and Lightning Live, Super Talk Mississippi. I'm Brian Hadad. Rhino down there in Studio X. He's still driving the boat. We're almost to our final destination. We'll get there sooner rather than later. The quarterback I was thinking of was Jeff Driscoll. I could not remember Jeff Driscoll. He was the freshman that Florida played in that game against Alabama. There you go. I finally found it there. We are brought to you by the good folks over at Visit Vicksburg. This sounds fun. The 3rd annual Witches Brunch at the Southern Cultural Heritage Center over on Adams Street. Of course, I know that as my former elementary school, St. Francis Xavier Academy. But from 11 to 1 this Saturday, you can head and have brunch with your favorite coven. Dress as your favorite witch. And don't forget your broomstick. For more information, call the Southern Cultural Heritage Center at 601-631-2997. Or you can email them, info@southernculture.org. How does Mississippi State get out of the current situation it's in? Here's what I will tell y'all. Whether you believe in Jeff Lebby or not, Mississippi State has to have better football players on the football team. Even if you are a person who is saying right now, we got to fire Jeff Lebby, we got to move on from him. I don't agree with you. I disagree with that sentiment. But if that's your belief, and I'm not going to fight you on it right now. But regardless of that, you got to have better players. And I'm telling you right now that Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, and Lane Kiffin could show up in Starkville right now, and this team wouldn't be that much better. They would be better, but they wouldn't be that much better because State just doesn't have the players. How many players does Mississippi State have on their offense and defense that could start at other schools? Isaac Smith is probably one. Kevin Coleman is probably one. That's it. That's the end of the discussion as far as I'm concerned. They're starting 22. Two guys are probably good enough to start. And I'm not talking about Vanderbilt. I'm talking about could start at what? Arkansas up in the SEC. Arkansas, Florida, South Carolina, Kentucky. Keep going all the way up till you get to Georgia, Alabama. I don't know if the state has anybody that could start at Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, or Texas. They got a few, maybe a couple who could start. Coleman could probably play at Ole Miss just because they cycle through the receivers. Isaac Smith could play at Ole Miss. They could use another guy in the secondary. And that's about it. There's only one way to get players, guys. And I know some of you guys have hit up to me on the text line. Like, they got to find guys that want to love Mississippi State and play for the love of the game. Well, you can go out and find those guys if you don't have a problem with seasons like this literally every year. The only way to get talented football players is through NIL. Now, last week, Mississippi State received a very generous gift of $8 million. Now, I know they set it up as the State Excellence Fund, and it's for, they're talking about revenue sharing, and I get all that. Guys, let's read between the lines here a bit here, all right? That money isn't just sitting around this offseason. It ain't just going to sit there and build up interest. It's going to be in play. And, I mean, I would be shocked if State doesn't spend well into the 8 digits this year on their roster because they have to. They have to rebuild both lines of scrimmage. Those defensive linemen that can play in the SEC, they don't come cheap. Those offensive linemen that can play in the SEC, they don't come cheap. Shapen's injury might have actually saved State a little bit of money. Because if Shapen had just had a good year and moved on, you had to go get another transfer quarterback. You weren't going to go into next year with just Parson, Van Buren, and Taylor and say best man wins. You weren't going to do that. Now you can evaluate Van Buren. Shapen will probably come back, and then you have Taylor coming in, and you got a little bit more experience there, so you're fine there. Should be a receiver. You don't have to spend a whole ton, I don't think. But your lines of scrimmage have to be rebuilt, and that's going to cost money. So if you're a Mississippi State fan, you're sitting at home and you're thinking, I can't deal with this. I don't want Mississippi State to be bad like this. I can't. How do we fix this? It's NIL, guys. And whether you like it or you don't, you're just going to have to hold your nose and deal with it. And it's because it just is what it is at this point. And I've said that a few times, but now I really mean it. Whether you like NIL or not, and honestly, Here's my take on NIL, and this is I'm not big on nuance, as you guys know, but I don't have a problem with players getting paid to play football. I don't. They bring hundreds of millions of dollars a year into the universities, billions of dollars a year in TV contracts to networks. I don't have a problem with them getting money out of it. I just don't. Call me a capitalist, but I do have an issue with the average fan being asked to pay the bill. All right. I don't like that. Unfortunately, at this time, and look, that could change it any day. We could, by the time we get to next year, the university could be handling this, and it turns into, they're paying, they're paying through the revenues that they have, and it's fine. It's fine. That's probably coming. But as of today, it's not here. So as much as you want to turn your nose up at it, you can't, because NIL is the only way out of the hole. You have to get better players, and the only way you get better players is through NIL. Now, I know what you're saying right now, all right, because I've heard it. Well, does Toledo have better NIL than Mississippi State? Does Arizona State have any better? No, they don't. They don't. And NIL is not the reason you lost those games. You lost those games because of coaching. There's no question about that. But you could have reached a talent spot where you won that game close. You walk out of you're like, God, what was Levy and Hutzler thinking? Thank God we had these players who were just better than the Toledo players. That's something where that is something that could have occurred. And if you doubt me, you think, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I just want you to look 90 miles up the north. What's going on up there? I promise you, no matter how much they want to tell you, oh, the Grove and all that, ain't nobody up there playing just because they love Ole Miss. They may love Ole Miss, but they love those NIL checks too. Ole Miss is fully committed to NIL. They have fully committed to the Grove Collective. They have one of the biggest collectives in the country. Now, contrary to what Steve Spurrier or what other people want to say, again, unless I'm just being lied to my face, which I don't believe I am, Mississippi State's collective is in good shape. That donation was very big. They've gotten some big gifts. People are starting to get the message. They're starting to see. I think Charlie Winfield is telling me that people are making that phone call. And they're like, I didn't want to do this, but man, we can't go on like this. And if this is what it took, to shake everybody up and get them going in the right direction, well, I guess it sucks, but that's just the way it had to be. If it had to bottom out to get everybody to understand the situation, then so be it. Mississippi State cannot move forward in the NIL world without NIL. They're in a good spot. They need to be in a better spot. And you got to be a part of that, whether you like it or not. Now, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. If you don't want to give money, I understand. Again, I'm not going to tell you you have to do it. I am going to tell you, though, that if you don't do it, well, then what did you expect? What did you expect? And if enough people think like you, then it's going to be a problem. You got to have more people in this collective. You need to get ahead of some of your rivals. And that's just the way that it has to be. And I will say this, talking to some people around Mississippi State, it's going to be an expensive rebuild, but State's in position to do it. And one of the main things you have to understand, this is where we're going to have to kind of talk. Well, we're talking off the record here. The transfer portal, the recruiting for that, there's a reason most of these kids go into the portal on Monday and they have a school on Thursday. This recruiting's happening ahead of time. Call it tampering if you want, call it whatever you want, but that stuff's happening ahead of time. And I'm not saying it shouldn't happen. I'm not saying anybody's breaking the rules because everybody's doing it, and I don't care. It doesn't bother me that Coach X called recruit Y and said, you want to come here. I don't have a problem with it. It's not an issue to me. But when you have a coaching change in the middle of the season like Mississippi State had last year, you set yourself up for failure in December. That's why people say you got to let Levy go. You want to do this again? You want to bring in a new coach and he can't get any transfers? You got to have continuity at the top right now. Mississippi State fans, if you're listening to me, if you take nothing else away from this show, I'm not joking when I say your contribution might be the one that makes the difference. So if you haven't reached out to Charlie Winfield and the Bulldog Initiative yet, if you want to be a part of the solution and not the problem, that's the way to do it. And I don't mean to make a commercial for the guy right now. I'm just telling you the truth that NIL in this day and age is the only way college football programs can go from being losers to being winners. And if you don't believe me, ask an Ole Miss fan. Because that's how they did it. They brought in a good coach, and they gave him the tools to succeed. Mississippi State, I think, has a good coach. I do believe Jeff Lebby is a good coach. I don't think he forgot how to coach offense. Got to give him the tools to succeed. We'll wrap it up when we come back. This is Thunder and Lightning Live here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
She ran to him. They looked backward and said goodbye. She had taken his hand. Come on, baby.
SuperTalk TV, streaming now on supertalktv.com. Thunder and lightning on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Listen up! There is a storm coming!
One more time with you here on Thunder and Lightning, live on SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm Brian Hadad. Rhino's backing into the parking spot at this point. We're almost there. We're going to get there. I want to thank all the good folks at the Tallahatchie River Festival today here in New Albany. What a fantastic time. 6 a.m. to now. It's been a great day. We really appreciate them having us out here, and look forward to doing it again with you guys next season. Tomorrow, Sports Talk Mississippi will be live at Scruggs in Saltillo, Mississippi. Richard is pumped because that's like one of his Disneyland kind of stops, right? He's going to be looking around at all the tractors and the equipment and everything. He's going to be like a kid at Christmas. They sold Ford F-150s. He might never leave. So check this out tomorrow. If you're going to be in the area, please come by and say hello, and we'll be happy to see you. Hope it wasn't too harsh. No, and I'm not trying to yell at y'all. I'm just want to make it clear, you know, where things stand here in the world of Mississippi State. Next week is the off week, and I've always done a thing called the bye-week blitz, where we talk to all the coaches outside of football. Because we have two of them this year, I'm going to split it up. So next week on the Thunder and Lightning podcast, you'll check out some interviews I'm going to do. I've already lined them up. Coach James Armstrong, Mississippi State women's soccer. They are off to a fantastic start this season. Historical footnote. If you didn't catch this on Monday's Sports Talk Mississippi, Mississippi State beat Oklahoma and Texas in their first two games of the season, of the SEC season, which means the first losses Oklahoma and Texas had in SEC history came at the hands of Mississippi State. So that's kind of cool. So we'll talk to him. We're going to talk to Coach Sam Purcell. We'll talk to him nice. He's going to have no complaints about the way we talk to him. And then we're going to sit in the chair. We got a dentist appointment next week. Coach Chris Jans will join me. Maybe the most anticipated season of Mississippi State basketball since go to the Final Four year. I mean, this is a team that people have high expectations for. Last year, my expectations for that team were a little bit too high, I think. But now with Josh Hubbard back, Cam Matthews back, and the host of transfers they were able to bring in, I feel really good about this team, but we'll see. We'll see what he has to say. So check out those three interviews next week on the podcast. We'll wait until the November bye week. We'll let fall ball happen, and we'll talk to Coach Lamonis and Coach Ricketts about baseball and softball, respectively. So looking forward to that, like I said, next week. Guys, this is not going to be an easy road to hoe over these next 8 weeks. And, you know, for me, I don't think it's a good idea for me to just come on here every day and do a show kind of like we did today. So we'll try to be a little bit more lighthearted. I certainly have tried to be that way on Sports Talk. You know, I mean, at this point, if you can't laugh, you're just going to cry. So I'm going to try to be a little bit more lighthearted about things. But I talked to you guys earlier in the season about the maroon bubble. We got to live in it. And I had some people saying, we really got to stay in here? People tweeting at me like, it's depressing in here. I promise you it's worse out there. Just stay inside the bubble, guys. It's not fun right now. It's not. I'm not going to sit here and guarantee that things are going to get better. Because one thing about NIL is this. If you don't do it, I guarantee you'll lose. But if you do it, I don't guarantee that you'll win. There's no guarantee that you're going to win. Everybody else is spending money, too. It's about who you get to coach those guys, and do you get the right guys? Saban said it. If you get the wrong guys, you're up you-know-what creek with no paddle. So I can't sit there. You know, Jeff Lebby told us at Media Days, he said, I want Mississippi State fans to know they got the right guy. That's not possible. It's not going to be possible with a 2-10 season. I mean, we can't walk away from this year saying, for sure, we've got the right guy at Mississippi State. You just can't. You can believe in Jeff Lebby. You can think he's going to turn things around, but you can't sit there with real confidence and look me in the eye and say, Mississippi State has the right coach in place. You can't. If you do that, you're just lying to yourself. You just don't want to feel bad. You just think that being positive somehow is a better way to live than being honest. That's just not how I'm going to roll. So we're going to get through all this together, though. We've got each other, and basketball season will be here soon. I've always been one of those people. I hate it when people are like, as soon as it'll be baseball season. You know, you can be good at other sports. You can be good at multiple sports. You're just not going to be good this year at football. So yeah, it's okay to look ahead to basketball. It's okay. If that's what you're doing already, so be it. Thinking about doing a post-game for those, too, as well. Speaking of post-game, don't forget, Saturday after the Mississippi State-Texas game, I will be live on YouTube for TNL post-game live. I'll be available. We'll do 20 minutes or so after the game, talk about what we saw, talk about what we learned, and just kind of take it from there. And then, of course, Thunder and Lightning, the podcast, will be available the next day on Sunday. As then, we're getting into SEC play now, and around the conference. A huge game Saturday night with Georgia, Alabama. Ole Miss starts conference play, finally get a real test on their schedule. You've got Texas A&M, Arkansas. That's a very intriguing game this weekend. A lot going on in college football. I mean, I love the season. It does suck that Mississippi State is just where they are. But as I said, how many times I've said it, I don't know, but I'll say it one more time for you. It is what it is here at Mississippi State. If you haven't subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast, please do so. It's available wherever you guys get podcasts. It's also available here at supertalk.fm. You can always check us out here on the website, which if you haven't bookmarked it already, do it. News, opinion, weather, sports, all of our shows, all of our podcasts right here. And it don't cost nothing. It's free content. Free content we're giving out here. You can't beat that. For Rhino down there in Studio X, he has once again piloted the ship to a complete halt. I appreciate him. I'm Brian Hadad. Thanks for listening to Thunder and Lightning Live here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
A SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.